Guys, welcome back to another Q&A, and this week it is training related questions. The date today is May 16th, so 2020. All right, so this is going to be a little bit shorter one today, but that is all right. Let's see here. We'll jump right into it. So first one, if you're forced into a higher calorie demand in order to progress, would you rather do a 3 to 4 day upper lower approach such as DC training, or a full body approach such as fortitude training to keep training days lower to give GI tract a bit of leeway? Yeah, so training less essentially because for less caloric expenditure, and potentially, you know, if you're eating more on training days, for example, you'd have less training days, right? Yeah, that's something I've done personally. Now, I mean, caloric expenditure during training isn't super crazy high, but when you're eating a lot and you're really taxed to the absolute max in terms of digestion and what you can intake, then it can be something to consider for sure. Now, the full body's obviously going to have a little bit more frequency, potentially. It really just depends on how you set it up, because if you're looking at DC training, it's a two-way split traditionally. You would hit everything with 3 days per week. I mean, you're going to hit everything essentially every, I think it's 8 days or something like that. Yeah, every 4 training sessions you hit everything twice or something. It's something along those lines. But with fortitude, I've read the book. I can't recall the exact split that's prescribed, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be something similar. It's just you're training more body parts. The only thing I would look at is recovery. If you are training, like for me personally, I would have a hard time overlapping things any more than twice a week, just because I know that's just how I recover personally. And especially when you're training max effort type lifts, right? Not submaximal stuff. You could train it more often. You know, there's plenty of strength models and stuff, and for powerlifting, Olympic lifting and things like that, where they train higher frequency than that, but that's not really what I'm talking about. In this case, I would just really look at it in terms of your recovery ability. And then secondly, look at it in terms of maybe muscle groups that you might want to prioritize, perhaps, and that might determine how you set up the split and the frequency. But yeah, I mean, if you're training in a lower, like lesser days per week, I would probably use that maybe more body parts per session, so it's still higher frequency, if that makes sense. Do you have to train, you know, the idea that higher frequency, you know, directly correlates to more hypertrophy might not necessarily be true, but from a recovery standpoint, it does seem to be true for people, because less, you know, if you're doing your chest and you do 5 exercises in a session versus 2, you're going to be able to put more effort into 2. You're going to have a shorter recovery time. Again, you can repeat, and then you know, you're probably matching volume overall, right? But you're getting more out of these sessions because you're not just going through the motions by the end of the session. So honestly, I think either of those would work. I think it's just going to be personal preference and how you want to prioritize certain muscle groups. Okay, let's see. When training HIIT fashion, such as DC, well, another question, or variations of it, how do you accumulate volume working up to a max set? Okay. Does it change workout to workout? Let's say I'm working up to top set of 6 on a bench. Do your preceding sets mimic the desired reps for your top set, or do you focus on keeping warm-up volume lower in order to maximize effort on top set? Hopefully I worded that question in a non-confusing manner. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's actually something that So that's kind of a nuance in training when you're doing those max effort type or those maybe lower volume, top set, whatever you want to call it, type of exercises or workouts, how warm-up procedure goes. And yeah, I mean, let's think about it. I want to maximize that top set. I don't want to waste and expend all my energy on my warm-ups, but I still need to warm up thoroughly. So it's going to depend on the lift, how many warm-ups you do, and how quickly your CNS kind of fires up. And, obviously, like, a squat's probably going to take more warm-ups than a dumbbell curl, right? I mean, just a lot more weight. It's going to take more sets to get up to that top weight. Now, the way that I kind of like to warm up is as the weight's lighter, I will probably do a little bit more reps. So we'll go off this example. He said 6. So my first set, I might do 5 or 6 reps. Second set, I might do 4 or 5 reps. Third warm up, I might do 3 reps. And then when I'm really close to the top set there, I might just do 1 or 2 reps. Just so I can feel that weight in my hands and have an idea of how that weight feels and be able to control it once it comes to that top set. So like I did an incline press. Let's see. I'm trying to even think of what day it was. Yesterday. No, it was yesterday. And it was a incline barbell. I was actually using the Rhinoflex Bambell bar, but anyhow. So the top set was like 3 plates a side and a 5, I think. And the top set, I think I ended up getting like 9 reps, okay? So when I worked up, I went bar weight for about 10 just to, get my shoulders through the range of motion. Then I went 1 plate for about 8. Then I went 2 plates for about 5 to 6. Then I went 3 plates for about 2 or 3 reps. I remember it was something like that. Then I'm ready. And then I just added the 5 aside and I was good. That to me worked. I mean, someone else might want to throw quarters in there and actually add more warm-ups. That felt fine to me. But yeah, I would probably taper down reps as warm-up weight goes up in order to just conserve energy but still prime your CNS and really... Camera fell down. You know what? I'm not even going to edit that out. I'm just going to keep that in. So we will keep rolling. So yeah, proceed to just taper. Weights up, reps down. There you go. Most of the time. All right. How would you program a new trainee's intensity level, or even a trainee that has plenty of experience but just doesn't realize they're not training with enough intensity to build muscle, aside from actually training with them? Oh yes, this is always a good one. So a couple things you could do. One, you could just intentionally program extra volume if you assume this, right? You could do that just to kind of compensate, because you kind of have that inverse relationship between volume and intensity. I mean, most of the time. You could ask for videos, hold people accountable through videos and just make them execute a certain amount of reps. Let's say you look at the video and you can tell that they have a lot more in the tank, that rep speed's not even slowing down or anything. Then be like, yeah, well, next week I want you to add 4 more reps to this because there's clearly 4 in the tank. You could send them a video of you doing it. I do that sometimes, and it's not like me being like, oh, look at how I'm training. It's the fact that I'm like, this is how I want your top set to failure to look, right? And do that. So they have something to visually look at and see what it looks like. Those are 3 good options. That's probably the 3 options that I use the most, and that normally gets the point across, right? So that's kind of how I would do it. But for a brand new trainee, like if it's someone that's experienced that's not training intensely enough, I'm gonna try to relay that to them through videos and whatnot. If it's a brand new trainee though, I'm gonna just slowly work up to those things. I might occasionally ask for videos, but here's the thing, is that a new trainee is gonna get a lot out of a little anyhow. So we don't necessarily need to break them. You know what I mean? So that's something to keep in mind. All right, last question. Contest prep training. Is there ever a situation where you would change training and contest prep outside of the last week? Most people say that you should continue to do what you did in the off season because that's what built the muscle. Yep, you hear that, right? And I tend to agree with that for the most part. I would say generally that's going to be pretty much true all the way through the prep. Wow, my nose itches like crazy. Generally that's going to be true all the way through the prep, and then the only time I might change that is I used to do the bit where you would increase the amount of days per week that you're training going to the show to burn more calories as a way to do less cardio and blah, blah, blah. And I still do that with some people, but I do it with a lot less people than I used to. And that's simply because I found that it was just so systemically stressful over time that it was almost better to do lower intensity caloric expenditure like steady state cardio than training, right? Even though the cardio was probably more boring, it was less taxing if you're doing, depending on the type. But it's it's really just gonna depend on the person. Some people will thrive in that higher, adding more training volume in days and things. Others just won't. Others that are already very stressed in prep, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just not gonna add more to it. So, keep that in mind. And then right at the end, I'm not going to freak out if someone's super taxed and they're just feeling like complete ass during training and they're to the point where they can't get under a bar without feeling like they're going to pass out. I'm not going to have them squat. Like, I'm not going to have them flat bench press. Like, I just don't see a point in getting hurt. You're a few weeks out and you switch over to machines and, more metabolic work and stuff. It's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to lose muscle tissue at that. And I kept kind of preaching this over the lockdown situation too, is that, the training that it takes to maintain muscle is a lot less than the training that it takes to build muscle, right? And that's not to say that you should train like crap during prep, but that's to say that if you need to back it off so you don't get hurt, or you don't just continue to run your body into the ground and create more systemic stress that's going to make you look worse, then don't do it. Right? That's not rocket science. That's going to make you look better at the end of the day. You're going to have a better end result. So why wouldn't you do that? It's not about being hardcore or not. That's not the point. The point is that just because you saw Ronnie Coleman squat 800 pounds 2 weeks out or whatever, like that's not the point. But I do have people that maintain strength close to the whole time. Some don't, some do. Just depends, So, yeah. So that's kind of take on that. And that's it for today, guys. So, like I said, a little bit shorter one. Sorry about the camera malfunction falling off my clippy stand thing, but happens sometimes. I'm not going to edit that out. And I will talk to you guys next time.